How's everyone doing? We are 9 and 4 more where we talk Jags football and other news around the NFL. And today we're going to be discussing the AFC West and all the transactions they did in free agency, all the players they signed, and the grades for each team in the AFC West. So let's get things started with the Denver Broncos. Obviously, the biggest news was they traded for Russell Wilson, which we actually did talk about in a previous video. Denver Broncos get their quarterback. I think good job for them. Russell Wilson comes to a team he waived his no trade clause for. He wants to play for the Broncos, and he has the talent around him in the defense, I think, to do it. I definitely like the Randy Gregory signing 5 years, $70 million. He backed off from re-signing with the Cowboys last second. There was actually a decent amount of players that decided to switch. In free agency, they were originally going to sign one team, backed out, signed with another team. Randy Gregory was one of those. So they get their other pass rusher next to Bradley Chubb. So definitely like their pass rushing duo. DJ Jones, I think 3 years, $30 million. Very underrated signing. He's a good interior defensive lineman. Very good at stopping the run. They also bring in a few linebackers for more so for depth. But overall, though, I thought the Broncos did a pretty good job, and I would give them A minus just because of Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that's what you got to grade it off on. Everybody else is kind of like secondary. Maybe Randy Gregory, which I think he maybe gotten paid too much. With the Cowboys, he really only had one good year, and that was last year. And that was in a 4-3, not in a 3-4. So we'll see how he plays in a 3-4, standing up primarily and having to cover, which I don't know if he'll be able to do that or not. But yeah, if you get Russell Wilson compared to what you've been having there at Denver, you got to give it an A minus at minimum. You like their offensive weapons. They didn't lose anybody but Noah Fant, who is probably it's a big loss, but their backup guy, Albert, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, has like 20 letters in it. He's very good too. He's a very solid backup. He could easily be their tight end one, considering that they have all these other weapons. One of the best running backs in the league coming up with Javonte Williams, in my opinion. They just got to hit on offensive line, and this Broncos teams can be really good. Their secondary is still young, still really good. And you got Russell Wilson. They're a Super Bowl team now, at least playoff contenders. That's 100% for a fact. They just got to stay healthy and build their offensive line. They could easily make a run. So I agree. I think A minus is the correct grade here.
Yeah, and they'll be able to figure out that tight end situation. Also, the draft is very deep, so they can get someone in the later rounds for their
second, third round. Fill that in, and there you go. Well, I don't know with their picks, actually. I don't think they have a second round, but maybe a third or fourth round.
Yeah, they'll be able to get someone.
Yep. All right, next we'll move to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is another kind of playbook that I think is similar to what the Baltimore Ravens did, where they're not signing a ton of guys, but they're signing like top guys. So they franchise tag Orlando Brown for one more year. He'll probably sign. I don't know if there'll be a deal that will happen or not. Not too much into on the Chiefs, what's happening there. But they redid Frank Clark. Frank Clark's there for another 2 years, $29 million. Frank Clark's one of the best interior defensive linemen. He can play interior, he can play edge, he can play whatever you want him to play. And he's going to just wreak havoc. They're letting Tyrann Mathieu go for Dustin Reed, 3 years, $31 million. Dustin Reed's one of the better young safeties in this league. He had a really good rookie year, kind of tailed off a little bit here and there with the Texans, but you almost got to think that's almost more on the Texans than probably the player. At least that's what the Chiefs are hoping for. And then they signed Juju Smith-Schuster to play their big slot. And that was one of the big things with the Chiefs. They never really had that wide receiver number 2. They were hoping that Hardman could become that. They were hoping Byron Pringle, maybe they hit on him, just wasn't working. So now you got Juju in there with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes gets another weapon. Overall, they didn't make too much moves. They're still the same team pretty much. So I guess that gives you a B grade, in my opinion. They didn't Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Reed, they're really that much of a difference. You brought 2 players back from your team and you signed a slot receiver. Haven't done anything on the secondary, and that's probably their biggest issue. So we'll see what happens with them. They still got to sign some edge guys, but my guess is they're going to sign a lot of quality veterans that are just looking for a ring. And once they fill that up, it'll probably turn to a B+ kind of grade. But right now, I think I got to chill at B.
Yeah, free agency wave 2 is going to be interesting for a lot of teams that's already in playoff contention. That's where a lot of these teams like the Chiefs, Ravens are really going to start signing their players.
Yeah.
But Juju, like you said, they can finally get their number 2. I think Juju is a good wide receiver when he is wide receiver number 2. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. He obviously he did really well when he had Antonio Brown with the Steelers. That's just my personal opinion. I expect Juju to have anywhere from 800 to 1,000 yards as number two. And I think as number two, that's a very good value, especially 1 year, 10 million. Nothing wrong with that. Obviously had to franchise tag or at least try to re-sign Orlando Brown. He traded a first round pick last year for him. So he was obviously, you had to keep him because you gave up the draft capital. You talked about Frank Clark, very underrated interior off defense lineman, can play edge rusher or inside as defense tackle, can do it all. Dustin Reed, like you talked about, good rookie year, kind of fell off. And I think, going into a Chiefs defense was very underrated, definitely took off, towards the middle to the end of the season. I think he's going to fit very well. The one thing I'm going to give them a B minus. I'm giving them a B minus right now because they didn't sign another corner. Ward left to go join the 49ers in free agency. So they definitely need another corner. Either they do that in the draft or wave 2 of free agency. But as of right now, since they didn't, get that need, in my opinion, that's why I'm going to give them a B minus.
Yeah, totally understand that. They're still Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid Chiefs. They're still going to do well, so they really didn't have to make big splashes. They made a couple, but definitely not like the next teams we're going to talk about, like the Las Vegas Raiders, who, in my opinion, had one of the best free agents.
They won free agency. I'm going to go ahead and put it out. They did.
I mean, they might. I got it. The Chargers are right there with them. The next team we're going to talk about, and because Chandler Jones, they're saying it's about a 52.5 million over 3 years, 34 million guaranteed. They extended Max Crosby 4 years, 98 million, basically 100 million, with 95 million in new money, 53 million guaranteed. And Davante Adams, absolute steal trade, only cost him a first round pick and a second round pick of this year. Obviously, under the tag, he is now the richest, but they extended him. He's now the richest wide receiver of all time. There is no debate on which wide receiver has the biggest contract. It is Davante Adams. He's making 28.25 million per year, and DeAndre Hopkins is like 27. That was a big deal for Adams. He wanted to be the number one wide receiver. He didn't want to play under the tag, and apparently that was the whole thing with the Packers. Once they tagged him, he pretty much said, "I'm never playing for you again. I told you I wouldn't do this." So that's kind of why the deal is probably cheap, is that he basically told the league, "I'm only going to the Raiders." So the Raiders had all the bargaining chips. Packers basically had nothing, and it only cost them a first round and then a second round pick. That's an absolute steal for Davante Adams. Underrated signings is Anthony Everett from the Baltimore Ravens. I think he was a very good corner. They lost a lot of their corners that were playing well for them last year because they were like 1 year veteran deals. So you bring in him, get Rocky Sheen for Yannick Ngakoue, and at first seemed like that was a steal for the Colts. But now Chandler Jones and Max Crosby on the edge instead of Yannick, in my opinion, the Raiders technically won it just because of their signings. Is it possible to give an A+ rating? Because I think I got to give it here. They're going to have one of the best pass rushers. They got the number one wide receiver for their team. They still got Hunter Renfrow. They still got Brian Edwards. They got Darren Waller, Jacobs at running back. They filled some needs at corner. It's literally this Raiders team. If Derek Carr can live up and Josh McDaniels can actually be a good coach and not just be an offensive coordinator, this Raiders team is going to look really, really deadly because of free agency. So A+.
No, yeah, I'm giving that A+. Obviously, you get the best wide receiver in the NFL, at worst wide receiver 2 in the NFL between him and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
you can't complain about that. They obviously have a lot of other talent on the offense. Derek Carr, I think, has got to be ecstatic. He gets to play one of his best friends. Defensively, obviously, Chandler Jones, Yannick, you're probably going to choose Chandler Jones just because of his history of what he's done to disrupt the pass rush. Even though Yannick is a good pass rusher, you re-sign Max Crosby to a max deal. You bring in Anthony Everett, how you talked about, another corner, which they needed. Defensively, they should be top 5 in the league, maybe top 8 at worst. Offensively, you're going to be a top 10. They still have Josh Jacobs, like you said. Now they get Amir Abdul, Brandon Bolden. They also still had
they still have
Kenyon Drake. Yep. So they have 4 running backs right there. The running backs are set. They have a lot of running backs that are obviously Josh Jacobs is more of that downhill runner. Now you got a blocking. Drake was more of your pass catching running back. Now you got Amir Abdul, who can do both. For Brandon Bolden, more of as that downhill running back. So you kind of got 2 of both. So I love what they did in free agency. I'm gonna give them an A+, and they got to be potentially the favorite to win the AFC West this year. I mean, I think it's gonna be hard to predict who wins the AFC West because you can make a legitimate argument for all 4 teams. I mean, they all I mean, is it crazy to say that this division might be the most stacked division in NFL history?
No, it is. It's all four are going to be, when you see the list of Super Bowl favorites per betting,
They might be the top four.
they might be the top four outside of the Rams. Maybe the Rams and Bucks are kind of chilling in there, but other than that, they're going to be the 4 out of the 6, in my opinion. At least I would do that. So, or yeah, it's going to occupy 4 out of the top 8 is going to be just out of this division.
Absolutely. I'm gonna give them an A+ though. They did everything they had to do. They got 10 times better. And in my opinion, before we talk about the Chargers, I think it's gonna come down to division, who stays the healthiest, obviously who coaches the best. And I think those are the two things it's gonna come down to.
Yeah, the NFL is a hard league to win every single game. They're not going to win. No, none of these teams are going to end up killing each other, playing each other. It's probably whoever's at
Bloodbath,
home.
man.
So whoever just doesn't lose that game you're not supposed to lose. You know how the Jags beat the Bills last year. Ended up not really hurting the Bills, but
It could have.
it could have. And that's where it could hurt any of these teams here. Jags, they got to face the AFC South. You got the Jags and Texans. You know, everybody is picking the Jags and Texans to lose. What if we win one of those games? Now, all of a sudden, let's say it's the Chargers who we're about to talk about. They lose that game. Now, all of a sudden, they could be one game behind everybody else in their division and records wide, and it could cost them a playoff spot possibly. So let's kick it to the Chargers now, who, in my opinion, are right there with the Raiders. They signed J.C. Jackson, 5-year, $82.5 million, $40 million guaranteed. One of the top corners in this league. You pair him with Asante Samuel and Derwin James out there in the backfield, and that secondary is now completely set. Was one of their Achilles heel with the Chargers, was their secondary really wasn't up to par with everyone else, especially in this division. Now it's one of the best in the division. You get Khalil Mack from the Bears, again, absolute steal in a trade where you only give up a 2nd-round pick and a 6th-round pick. Khalil Mack necessarily wasn't doing great in Chicago, maybe didn't live up to the trade that Chicago got him for from the Raiders, but you put him next to Joey Bosa, and he's probably going to go back to the original Khalil Mack that we all remember as just a dominant force. Everybody else is kind of just filling the gaps. They re-signed Mike Williams, probably was one of their first things. They had to do that. Their vertical threat with Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. They brought in today Gerald Everett from Seattle. And, you know, he's going to be a solid tight end. Who knows? Well, he went from Seattle, then he played on the Rams. Forgot about the little Rams stunt, or is it backwards?
Rams in Seattle. Yeah.
Rams in Seattle. Yeah, that's what it was. He didn't do really much in Seattle. He was kind of okay. Maybe he can do more here with the Chargers. We'll see. But overall, quality signings, but 3 big names with 2 outside the team were Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. That definitely the Chargers are right up in there. I've been talking about. I guess I'll give them an A, maybe not an A+, just because Devontae Adams is just so much better than Mike Williams. Mike Williams is good, but he's not Devontae Adams. So that's probably just an A and not an A+.
Yeah, I'm going to give them just a solid A. They did a good job. They obviously got J.C. Jackson, one of the better corners in the league. He does sometimes give some touchdowns, but he is a turnover machine, gets a lot of interceptions. And this type of league, that is crucial. I mean, you look at the Cowboys and Diggs. Yeah, he gave a bunch of touchdowns, but he got a lot of interceptions, a lot of defensive touchdowns that really took that defense to another step. So love the J.C. Jackson signing. Khalil Mack, I think he's going to go back to how he was with the Raiders or when he first got to the Bears. Just going to wreak havoc on the pass rush, having another elite pass rusher next to him in Bosa. Going to be an absolutely nasty combo. I mean, you talk about the pass rush, the Chargers and the Raiders. The Broncos are going to have a pass rush duo there. The Chiefs are have Frank Clark. I guess I won't count the Chiefs, but for the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Broncos, they might have the best duo, top 5 duos in the league when it comes to pass rush. So defensive quarterbacks gonna be watching out a lot for this these duos. And then tight end Gerald Everett, I don't think he's nothing special, but they need another tight end. You get one in 2 years, $12 million with Gerald Everett. I think that's a pretty good signing. And obviously re-signing Mike Williams, 3 years, $60 million at the time seemed like a lot for the number 2, but kind of how we signed Christian Kirk and all these other wide receivers starting to get paid, that 3 years, $60 million isn't nothing now.
Yeah, in 2 years, that deal is going to be like, Mike Williams might hold out to get a new deal kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like that's the way that these deals are just hanging out for wide receivers, kind of like how quarterbacks are going to start doing that after the Deshaun Watson thing. We're going to have to really pay Trevor Lawrence, probably, if he works out with what Deshaun Watson just got. So we'll see what happens, man. But this AFC West is just looking absolutely stacked. Odds are the favorite division to win a Super Bowl. If there was like a betting for that, you would probably have to bet that the Super Bowl winner is going to come out of this division, unless they just absolutely kill each other and they're just like all bloodied and bruised. And by the time they get to the playoffs, they get absolutely steamrolled by some team that's healthy and, didn't have to work as hard. But we'll see what happens, man. But this AFC West is just absolute one of the most stacked divisions of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely the best division in all of football right now.
Yeah,
but overall, definitely check us out on Twitter at 904 more. We tweet quite a bit about the Jags and obviously the whole NFL in general. Hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching, and go Jags.
Jags.